Today we're going to talk about the 2 rules that change every client meeting and to ultimately make sure that we avoid objections right from the very beginning of the relationship. Historically, we all used to fall into the trap of having to deal with objections retrospectively. But if we set aside time at the beginning of each meeting to firmly establish what we expect from the client and of course what they expect from us, we can avoid objections before they happen. Those 2 rules are very, very simple. First, and we've explored this before, is to understand the reasons why we might be meeting the client. And so far as I'm concerned as a financial professional, there are 2 fundamental principles. Number 1, I need to establish whether we as a couple, the basis of all human interaction and relationships, it is to discuss and decide whether we ultimately can work together. Do I have something of value? Do they like me? Do they trust me? Can they work with me? And do I feel the same way about them? It is a reciprocal arrangement. The second thing is that I need to understand if I can help them, if I can be of service, of value. And I need to do that by understanding as much about my client as I possibly can. That means encouraging them to give full and frank disclosure. So typically I might be saying, I can only give you best advice if you can give me full and frank information. In other words, the quality of advice I'm able to give you is based entirely on the quality of information you give to me. No one ever wants to compromise when it comes to best advice. The other part of this process is to deal with any other potential objections before they become objections. I started when I was very young, so I knew my age could be a deciding factor in a client saying yes or no to me. Maybe there was a recent piece of adverse publicity about financial services or the way we're paid. So I want to deal with those things at the beginning. So typically, as a form of words, I might be saying, before we go any further, before I start asking you those questions, can I just cover off? And then I might proceed to talk about the way I'm paid. So for example, we are going to build a long-term relationship, I hope. That means that over time, I'm going to be doing an awful lot of work and not being paid for my time. Conversely, there will be times we agree to do something together for which I will be paid a commission or a fee by my insurance carrier. Over the course of time, those 2 things will even themselves out and there will be a fair arrangement between the 2 of us. Does that make sense? Is that fair? And getting agreement from the client or prospect at the beginning paves the way for a smooth transition into the advice ultimately you give. And if then, for example, the client says something like, oh, I'm not very happy about the amount of money you're receiving for this particular transaction, we take them back to the original agreement that we made at the outset, which is, if you recall, we talked about a long-term relationship. And although this is one part of it, there is lots of other occasions where I will be doing lots of unpaid work. We agreed that it would even itself out over time. But if in the future you feel that it's not fair, it's too one-sided, it doesn't benefit you, let's by all means have a conversation.